Greetings on this Wednesday, April the 2nd, 2025. This is Denison Forum's Daily Article Podcast. I'm Chris Elkins, narrating today's daily article written by our friend, co-founder, and CEO, Dr. Jim Denison. On March 29th, Hamas murdered 22-year-old Uday Nassar Saadi al-Rabbay, according to his family. They tortured him and mutilated his body, then threw his body off a tall building. His crime? He took part in recent protests against the terrorists who rule Gaza. As a result, according to his mother, quote, they caught him, tortured him, slashed his arms with knives, stabbed him with screwdrivers. They stabbed him 170 times. His whole body was stabbed and pierced, end quote. A note was pinned to his body reading, "This is the price for all who criticize Hamas." The most detailed Western investigation into the atrocities of October the 7th has now been released. The UK's October 7th Parliamentary Commission report runs to 318 pages. Chaired by Lord Andrew Roberts, one of Britain's leading historians, it documents the deaths of 1,182 people in a 48-hour period. The report describes the assault as, quote, a meticulously planned operation designed not only to kill, but to terrorize through extreme brutality, looting, and humiliation. Some examples in the report? A baby was murdered just 14 hours after it was born. A Holocaust survivor was killed at the age of 91. Infants were shot in strollers or burned alive. Women and girls were gang raped. Sexual violence was committed against corpses. And terrorists used victims' phones to send images to their families, booby-trapped corpses with grenades, and dragged bodies through Gaza. When asked how democracy should respond, Roberts answered, the first is properly to memorialize the victims. The second is to see this appalling act of barbarism for what it is, which is a complete denial of democracy, a blow struck deliberately against civilization, and the most appalling act of racism. End quote. For more on this appalling act of racism, find a link in today's podcast episode notes to my friend Ruben Nevo's first-hand account of growing up where Hamas invaded and the path forward for Israel. I reference Uday al-Rabbay's murder and the UK's report to counter the, quote, moral equivalence claims that have tragically dominated much of Western response to October the 7th. From college campuses to media outlets to halls of government, we continually hear the assertion that both sides are wrong and that Israel is as complicit in this tragedy as Hamas. Some go even further, caricaturizing Israel as a colonialist whose oppression of Gaza forced Hamas to respond as it did and blaming Jews for the massacre of Jews. As Israel continues its efforts to keep Hamas from mounting another such invasion, something the terrorist group repeatedly claims it wants to do, much of the world blames the IDF for all civilian casualties, despite the fact that Hamas hides behind Palestinian human shields, mosques, hospitals, and schools. If Israel's critics want the Jewish state to defend itself at all, they want it to do so while engaging a highly challenging urban environment in ways that do not harm the very civilians Hamas hides behind and whose subsequent deaths Hamas uses to bolster itself in the court of world opinion. I do not mean to suggest that Israel is by any means a perfect nation or that the IDF has responded flawlessly to October 7th in Gaza. Like America, they are a nation made of fallen sinners who sometimes fail their values just as we do. The difference between Israel and Hamas is that the former has values, the latter does not. As I have explained repeatedly since October the 7th, Hamas's atrocities express their founding charter and commitment to the annihilation of Israel. This is why Israel must not allow Hamas to rearm itself, or it will stage another October 7th. Dennis Prager, a cultural commentator who studied at the Middle East Institute at Columbia University School of International Affairs, explains the conflict this way, quote, Israel wants to exist as a Jewish state and live in peace. Israel also recognizes the right of Palestinians to have their own state and to live in peace. The problem, however, is that most Palestinians and many Muslims and Arabs do not recognize the right of the Jewish state of Israel to exist. Think about these two questions. If tomorrow Israel laid down its arms and announced, "We will fight no more," what would happen? And if the Arab countries around Israel laid down their arms and announced, "We will fight no more," what would happen? In the first case, there would be immediate destruction of the state of Israel and the mass murder of its Jewish population. In the second case, there would be peace the next day. End quote. October 7th made Prager's point brutally clear. Let's close by making the issue of moral relativism personal. We live in a postmodern culture where such relativism reigns supreme. Many illogically believe it to be absolutely true that there are no absolute truths. Add critical theory's Marxist division of the entire human race into oppressors and oppressed, and you have a recipe for immorality in the name of morality. This issue is as real for you and me as it is for Hamas's most virulent supporters. Like you, I am tempted to view uncomfortable truths through the prism of personal preferences, making Jesus my Lord only in those places where his lordship does not demand changes I do not want to make. Here's the good news. God will help anyone to be holy who wants his help. Solomon noted in Proverbs 15, verse 9, "The way of the wicked is an abomination to the Lord, but he who loves him who pursues righteousness." Since we are finite and fallen people, the pursuit of righteousness is what God seeks. Our secularized culture measures success by the destination, since its destinations are within human reach. God measures success by the journey, since the destination is not achievable in this life. Someone once asked a monk living in a mountain monastery high above the village below, "What do you do up there so close to God?" He smiled and replied, "We fall down and we get up. We fall down and we get up. We fall down and we get up." Let's do the same today to the glory of God. You didn't see it coming. One minute, you're catching up over coffee. The next, your friend looks down and says, "My son just told us he identifies as a woman." What do you say? The world is full of answers. Follow your heart, rewrite your story, choose your own truth. But none of them bring peace. You know the truth is in God's Word. You know identity isn't something we create, it's something we receive. But how do you say that in a way they can hear? That's why Who Am I exists. This new book from Denison Forum equips you with the biblical insight you need to respond with both clarity and compassion. It unpacks what it means to be made in God's image and why that truth changes everything for someone wrestling with identity. Because the next time that moment happens, you don't want to freeze. You want to be ready. Get your copy today with a donation at supportdf.org. That's support, the letter D, the letter F.org. Equip yourself with the confidence to share God's truth in a world searching for answers.